is it's about American Freedom Radio and how important it is that we support American Freedom Radio. On Saturday nights, the show is hosted and produced and controlled by American Freedom Radio. Normally I do it myself. I produce myself. I record during the week whenever I want. But on Saturdays, Danny produces the show. Danny Romero is 7 years old. And he's been running American Freedom Radio for years and years and years. It has a very rich history, this station. And what he's done recently, a couple of things I want to say about it too, is that it's a good work environment here. Okay, I've worked on a lot of stations. And it's a good work environment here. There's no hostility between the host. There's no pressure and hostility with the station owner or anybody else. There's great hosts on here. Right off the top of my head, I could think of Pierce Redmond, who does incredible work on Tuesdays. Then you got every night of the week, you got Chuck Ocelli, another great guy. And then you got Vinny Eastwood, who's a legend, Not only in his own mind, he's a legend in radio for the kind of work he's put together. What? Is this screwing up over here too? Okay. Hey, okay. So they've put together a Patreon. If you know what that is. Patreon is where you can support the arts and artists and all that kind of stuff. So if you go to Patreon and you just type in American Freedom Radio, it'll come up. Patreon.com, and then they use, it's all goofy user, but when you get on it, you can search for American Freedom Radio, and you can find it. And then what you do is you can set up a little monthly or weekly stipend to donate to the station here and keep it online and keep it improving. We need to bring in the more hosts, and I know Danny wants to do this thing with video and stuff like that. So that would all be great if we could someday do that stuff, because they really are doing good work at the station. Just for Pierce Redmond alone, I would say, because I'm a huge fan of his work. The guy does some excellent work. Okay. So while I'm trying to get a hold of Trine and get the correct phone number, I'll do the notes that I was going to do in the second hour. And I don't know what I'm going to do in the second hour. I'll just have a heart attack and pass out. All right, you'll enjoy that, I'm sure. So last night, when I was doing my solo portion of the show, I was doing a show about Charlie Sheen and Rob Lowe and David Copperfield and how that all connects to Jeffrey Epstein. While all that was going on, I was getting these email updates about the situation with Lisa Marie Presley. And I'll get these email updates because, you might recall, over my career, I've been involved in these really high-profile cases like Tiger Woods and the Charlie Sheen case. And so I've met a lot of people over at the National Enquirer and Radar Online and all these kind of outlets, these kind of gossipy tabloid-type outfits. So from emailing back and forth, you get put on email lists. So I get press releases and notices of what their reports are going to be about before they send them out and before they're published on the National Enquirer, before they publish it. And sometimes it's the same day, sometimes it's a couple of days before. And sometimes I get stuff that doesn't make it past the editorial cut. So I see stuff that doesn't even get into the National Enquirer or get on Radar or one of these things. So I get a lot of stuff. A lot of advanced press release stuff. You get a lot of books. People mail you books in the mail. Trine Day sends me books all the time. You get books from authors you don't even know who they are, and they don't even give you contact information. They say, "Hey, contact me. I want to get on your show." They just send you a book in the mail. And I guess they just want you to read it or whatever. Now, in dealing with these situations, like with Tiger Woods and the Charlie Sheen, these were year-long, 24-hour news stories. And even with the Zimmerman, the Trayvon Martin and the Zimmerman thing, I was working behind the scenes on that because if anybody could locate where George Zimmerman was hiding out, and you could you could sell that information to the press all over the place, it would have been a fortune. And I did find him, but he turned himself in the same day. But also, too, I originally got involved in that because I obtained the 311 audio tape that Zimmerman had called the police, and you heard that recording about how he was chasing down Trayvon Martin. And I heard it, too. I watched it on the news on HLN, and it sounded weird. So I contacted the police department down there in Florida, and I requested the 311 recording. And it turned out that there was a 4-minute, I think it was like 4 minutes and 11 seconds was the entire recording. And when I sat down and listened to it, it sounded totally different from the one that was being played on HLN all night long. This one, you could hear, in the last 3 minutes of the tape, that Zimmerman was afraid. He didn't want to say where he lived out loud. He didn't know where the kid had gone. He was nervous. Can you please hurry up? Can you please get down here? It was a whole different characterization of what was going on that night than what you heard on HLN. And I even contacted HLN. And I told him that. Oh, you know what? Hey, Danny, by the way, I gave this kid our number. I gave this guy our number. I gave him my number, my backup number. He's not calling up either. So this guy's going to be MIA totally. Yeah, he's not coming through at all. I just realized I sent him a backup number. But let me just... Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll just do the whole show myself. Oh, I screwed up over there. All right, let's get back to work. Screw all this. Okay, so even I contacted HLN, and I said to them, hey, you guys aren't playing the whole thing. The audio tape that I have is better than the one that you've had, than the one that you're playing on there. And they were going to invite me on as a guest. I was in touch. I don't say Vinny Politano. It was him. And I was going back and forth with his producer all day long. They were going to invite me on the show to go on the show there and present my full tape. And then it was even funny, too, because I even told them where they could get the police reports and stuff like that. I showed them all they didn't even know where the website was to get all this information. And then later on that night, Vinny Politano's arguing with his guest, and he's using all the information that I gave him. Okay? But then I got blown off. They didn't invite me on the show. But the point I'm trying to make is that I've been behind the scenes on these 24-hour news stories, these big stories. Another one was Wienergate, okay, that I worked on the Wienergate case. And there's a lot more, too, that I can't talk about, things that I've been involved in that I can't tell you about because, it's done privately. So, and when I was working on these cases, like especially with Tiger Woods and Charlie, there's stuff that goes on that never makes the news, okay? Like just as I was explaining to you about the Zimmerman tape. Now, even that, still to this day, I think you could find the full tape on YouTube, but on the news, they never report it for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they don't. But things would come up that we would have information about that would never make it to the news, okay? But also, too, there's things that get reported, especially in the tabloids, but in the regular news, too, that's manufactured. They're like press pieces that are made up. They're staged for entertainment purposes. Like, I'll give you an example. Okay, many people probably don't even know this, but I was heavily involved with Octomom, Nadia Suleiman. We had the same agent. And everything you know that you think you know about Octomom is not real, okay? All those stories, well, the stuff about her getting in trouble for the food stamp fraud and the bankruptcy and some of the stuff about losing her house was correct. But all those stories you would hear about, about vandalism to her and stalking things and these sex tapes and all that kind of stuff was all largely manufactured stuff. It was made up stuff to keep her in business because she was making money off these stories. This is more involved than fake news, okay? This isn't fake news. This is how the tabloids work. This is how they operate. This is what they are in the business of doing, okay? So when people, a lot of times, I had a fight with somebody. Okay, when I had to go down and do the I moderated a debate down here for the sheriff's debate a few years back, and I hosted the debate, and I moderated the debate for the people running for sheriff, and then I did one for running for governor. And the woman who got me those gigs was writing these nasty things online about Nadia Suleiman, Octomom. And I got mad at her. I says, "No, that you don't know the first thing about her. She's a very nice woman, and she takes great care of those kids. She loves her kids, and and she didn't mean to have 9 kids. That was a total. Her doctor lost his license over that. If people knew the real story, okay, but everybody has this preconceived notion of what they think Octomom is because of these packaged stories that have been put together like a package and presented to you and sold to you, and because people make their living off of doing this. I would also get stuff, like with Bombshell McGee. Okay, remember the story about Bombshell McGee? She was dating that motorcycle guy, Jesse James, and he was married to Sandra Bullock. And many of those stories you would hear were manufactured stories, okay? And I would get, almost like by accident and stuff like that, or they would be passed around. Pictures that were being sold into the tabloids of Bombshell McGee on the beach and stuff like that, that were, behind the scenes. Like there's an industry. That goes with publishing these stories and selling these papers, okay? As a matter of fact, I was going to do like a publicity story with Bombshell McGee. And we had a whole thing. I can't get into too much detail because it was involved some work. But it was going to be a thing we were going to do for the press, for publicity, that was going to help us with another aspect of her life. And it turned out that it was that same night that Whitney Houston died at the Grammy Awards. So no one was going to publish our stuff, so it was a waste of time. The whole thing fell through. Now, last night, when this came up, okay, oh my God, okay, this is a madhouse here, okay. Last night in the chat room, we were talking about some different things, and one thing that I was mentioning was about Bruce Jenner. Now, I'm talking about way back in 2010 when I was working on the Tiger Woods thing. We knew that Bruce Jenner was transitioning into a woman. We knew that he was a transvestite. We knew that he used to dress up as a woman. And this wasn't widely known, but we knew it. And around that same time, there was this very bizarre picture that was circulated that I saw of Kylie Jenner, where Kylie Jenner, and this wasn't a staged photo op, this was an accidental paparazzi type shot taken of Kylie Jenner getting into a car in front of her house where she was dressed in an outfit that was like a hooker's outfit, okay? The tiny little mini skirt and these little stripper heels. And this is when she was like a 12-year-old kid, okay? Which is why this was stuck in my memory so vividly. So when people say that, hey, these Jenners are pimping out their kids, there could be a lot more to that than you think. Because I saw it with my own eyes. A very strange picture of this kid when she was a little kid. And that was a picture that wasn't widely sold to mass media. For somehow, some of these things too get silenced. Now, this is something that was very this is something that would be very valuable, okay, to sell a picture like that. But somehow, some of these things can be covered up too, okay? And it was right around that same time that we were discussing that photo that I found out that Bruce Jenner was transitioning into a woman. And the story that I heard at the time was that it was because when he was in the Olympics, he was taking all kinds of steroids and testosterone and stuff like that. And it messed him up sexually. It messed up his hormone balance. And that's how he got into this whole thing about it. That's a story. That's how I heard it. That's how it was told to me. And then there was some kind of debate. Is he really going to become a woman? What's going on with that? But we knew this for a fact 10 years ago. And all it just all hit the news just now recently. And that was so people, by the way, who think that maybe this is some kind of stage thing that just came up short, recently, it's not. We've known about this for 10 years, 7 years. Right around that same time, too, there was another picture floating around. This one you could find on the internet. I've looked for the Kylie Jenner one. I've never been able to find it. But this one you can't find. And this is a picture of Lindsay Lohan and Dina Lohan making out. Okay? Did you know that there's a picture? There's actually a video of this, too, as well. But there is a picture. I've seen the picture, and I've heard about the video. And they were at the Chateau Marmont in California. And Lindsay used to stay there all the time. She used to party there at the club all the time. And she had a big bill with the club. And her and her mother were there late at night. This is the story that goes around, okay? I don't know if it's true, 100% true or not. But the picture's true. And this is the story behind the picture that I heard. Lindsay wanted to get a room at the hotel. And they told her, we can't give you any more credit. You got to pay your bill. Okay? And they didn't have any money. And they were too drunk to go home, to drive home. But they wanted to stay there that night. And they made a deal with some guys they were partying with that night that if they made out, the guys would pay for the room, would pay their room tab, and let them use a room. Now, that's the story. Now, the picture, there's a picture of them making out. Okay, we know that for a fact. And you look at it, they're really making out, too. And this is a late night. They were partying, they were drunk. So the rest of the story seems like it could be possible. Okay? Now, that's an example that I'm trying to give you of a case of, you'd think that would be a big story, right? But no, it's not. People know about it, but it's not widely told because it's not packaged and sold to the public the way they package and sell things to the public. Okay, I'm starting to catch my rhythm here. Okay. God almighty. Now, okay, everyone stop Skyping me, please. Okay? All right, guys, I've had enough. Please. Okay. And with the Facebook, too. Cut it out. Now, the point I'm trying to make when telling you about this, okay, is that these things are packaged, okay, just like Mr. Trump has been packaged to you. And last night, at the beginning of my show, I talked about the chaos going on over at the White House. And I only talked about it for a couple of minutes. And somehow that video must have gotten circulated in some Trump fan hangout because I got bombarded all day long with these comments with these Trump fans. Even though I didn't make that many comments about it. And I'm trying to explain to you that it is my belief and the information that I have from my sources that there is chaos in the White House right now. And I explained this to you a little bit yesterday when I was mentioning about how this executive, the executive office management, the EOMB, this building over there, the EOMB building, which is right across the street from the White House, where they have all the support staff for the executive branch of government. Okay? And the offices are empty. They have not hired. Mr. Trump, your hero, has not hired a staff to run his branch of government. They do not exist. These offices are empty. And my point that I'm telling you that is that the guy is an incompetent con man. Okay? And all these theories that he's doing some kind of drunken judo or something like that, and he's a mad genius, and this is all an act, or he's an outside. No, I'm convinced more than ever that he was just a con man who lied his way into the office, and like everything else he's done in his life, incompetently, it's falling apart, these bankruptcies. This is what's happening right before our eyes right now in government. And it's frustrating, for me at least, that I need to explain this, because I assume that everybody kind of gets the drift, that everybody kind of knows that, hey, Octomom isn't real. That everybody knows that The Apprentice, okay, wasn't real. I wonder how many, because I know that there's these Trump fans. Like right now, I'm watching this guy on CNN that Trump called up on the stage. The guy's a complete fanboy, idol worshiping, simple mind. And it's people like that put this man in president that think that The Apprentice was real. They think that room in The Apprentice, that studio where they filmed that scene, is Trump's boardroom. And they think that hallway out there, the waiting room out in front, is Trump's real waiting room. And that's Trump's real receptionist. And they think that when the people come down and walk out to get a cab in New York City, that's not all staged, that all those cabs aren't there, those aren't extras. And they didn't shut down that street to film that scene. There's people out there that think that's real. What we have here is a situation in the last month, okay, where this guy Mike Flynn has had to resign in 3 weeks. We have this chaotic press conference we saw the other day where there's some kind of gold curtain behind Mr. President. And the first portion of the press conference, there's a rambling speech. Then the first portion of the press conference, the press didn't even have a working mic so that their questions could be recorded, the audio could be recorded. It was in the mid-press conference that they started passing around a microphone, impromptu. And one of the reasons for that is because the building where they did that in is empty, okay? Because no one's working there, because he hasn't hired the people. And you got to wonder why. See, you'd think a guy like Reince Priebus could just fill up that office in a day. But for whatever reason, he's not. Maybe he's handcuffed because Trump's not letting him. We don't know the reason why. Then you got a situation where there's a leaking coming out of the White House and coming out of the executive branch like I've never seen before. There was just a report on the news today about how all of Trump's employees, they're afraid to talk on the phone because they think their phones are tapped. No one of any substance in their life, of any age, can look at this situation and say it's not chaos, it's not a circus, and we're not watching our government crumble before our eyes because of poor leadership. Not to say that I'm not in favor of the government falling apart, okay? Because, it could almost be a good thing. If, obviously, the system we live under right now is intolerable, and we should not be living under these conditions. And we do need the system of government to crumble, to fall, okay? That we could build, my opinion, is a socialist government. But you can't deny, though, that what we're seeing here is chaos and a mess going on here. And it doesn't seem also, too, that there's any kind of organized left outside of the MoveOn.org types that are hijacking what I believe is an organic grassroots left that wants to rise up in this country. You see the support of Bernie Sanders. There is a real market for that form of government to rise up right now. I think the people want this, and because we're living under such economic inequality that everybody's realizing that we're getting screwed. like I was saying, yeah, and a couple of other things too I wanted to point out too, like this Muslim ban fell apart, and how when he tried to come up with this executive order banning Muslims, it went before the court, and the court ruled it was unlawful. And I started noticing people like on Facebook and on talk radio and stuff like that, just saying, well, the judicial branch, well, who elected them? We should remove, and then there's memes saying that we should remove the judicial branch of government. And again, anybody of any age to hear this kind of talk just so flippantly, that we should change the form of government that we've had for 200 years and remove all the checks and balances in favor of a strong man, giving the president more power, this strong man, this fascist dictator. The people are asking for a dictatorship in this country. There is a portion of this country right now that sees Trump as a strong leader and just want to turn over the whole government to him and give him all the power. And they would be happy with that because they have this fantasy and they have this dream that he's Mr. Trump from the boardroom on The Apprentice, and he's a good man because they've seen him every week, and he seems like a good man, and he's wonderful guy. And even when they see things falling apart right before their eyes, all right, they're in denial, and they want to believe that he's real. They want to believe in the dream, okay? Because what I'm trying to tell you is that Donald Trump is the consummate con man, using all the consummate con man tricks, repeating things over and over. You know how he'll repeat the same thing 6 times in one sentence until you start to believe that it's real? Everything's going to be wonderful. Everything's going to be great. This is going to be the best ever. I'm so excited about this. All these salesman tricks. This is basic stuff that, like I wonder, I see this because, I used to send my salesman out to learn these tricks. And then they come back to the office, they'd annoy the hell out of you for a week when they're repeating all this nonsense, trying to fool you. And this is what he's doing to the country. Now, in my work as a private investigator, one of the things, my fields, my specialties, is investigating internet con games, internet scams, okay? Romance scams, catfishing scams, this kind of stuff, okay? So, in my life, I have met many victims of con artists, okay? And I've, I hear they call you up, and they start off, I met this guy online. And I was suspicious at first. But I tell you, the more we started talking to each other, I started to trust him. And he had an explanation of why he had a British accent and why his calls were coming from Nigeria and all these kind of things. And finally, I sent him some money. Or I sent him my bank account number. Because he told me he was sending me a gift. And in order for me to collect that gift, I had to pay for some storage fees. And now I got this collection agency calling me up from Australia, And you can talk to these people for a couple of seconds, and you hear the whole they're caught up in a scam. It's very obvious. It's very obvious to anybody on the outside looking in. But to this person, they're still holding out hope that I'm going to tell them, oh no, I investigated this whole situation for you, and he really does love you. He really is what he says, and the money you sent him, don't worry, he's going to pay it back just like he promised. That's what they're hoping, against hope, even though they know deep down in their heart they're getting scammed, okay? But they want to believe. They want to believe so bad. They want to believe so bad, okay, that I will be on the phone with one of these people, and I'll tell them, listen, as soon as you hang up this phone, this is what you're going to do. You got to stop emailing this guy. You got to block his phone calls. You got to call your bank and close that account. Okay? And you're going to have to make some changes. You're going to have to make some drastic changes. You got ripped off. We got to stop the bleeding here now. I'll get off the phone with them. The next day, 20 minutes later, whatever, I'll hear back from that person. Oh, I just talked to him, and he says, you're the one lying to me. And now he says, you're the one. Like somehow, like this person contacted me. I found them and knew their situation. I would, you know, it's even if they're not paying me, I'm just giving them free advice over the phone. They can't resist going back to the guy scamming them because they believe, they want to believe so bad. Just like these people who are falling for this big orange con man have a dream that everything's going to be all better and he's going to make America great again. And they cannot, no matter what you show them, you can show them Trump University, that he had to refund all the money from this thing. You show them that right in front of your face, everything's falling apart. Right in front of your eyes. But still, no, I gotta believe he's gonna make America great again. Now, one of the reasons why I'm trying to tell you this story here today, and I apologize for being so distracted. I got so many things, people hitting me here all at once. Is that very often, you know, I'll report something to you, right? And many times it's something I know firsthand, all right? And a lot of times it's something I know firsthand, and I can't tell you how I know it. And it's a problem, okay? You know, sometimes I like to be able to tell you all the time what I know, but sometimes it's because it's work-related stuff that I know it. And you know, and I want you to know too that I've given up a lot by doing this show and coming out here and telling you the stuff that I tell you. And I'd love to get into that. And maybe one day that I can. Oh boy. You know, back when I got involved in the Sarah Palin thing, you know, there were only about 400 digital forensic labs in this whole country that were accredited by the ASCLD, what is it, the American Society of Crime Laboratories Directors Division, something like that. And I was one of them, you know. And there was this field that was brand new, you know, and I dived right into it. And we had top of the line equipment, you know. And when I got involved in the in the Sarah Palin thing, you know, I took a big hit. You know, I took a big hit getting involved in that. We had to move our offices into much more expensive offices. We had to combine with other digital forensic investigators locally. And I could tell even with that was out of the mainstream enough that just talking about that, I knew that I couldn't always talk about what I knew about Sarah Palin and Todd Palin because you kind of give up your mainstream credibility. Like I used to be on a lot of mainstream TV and radio and stuff like that, you know? And then more and more, as I started delving into the alternative media and stuff like that, they don't want to really touch you anymore, okay? So I actually came into this because there were things I wanted to report. But also, too, I thought I was going to get more press this way, too. And also, too, I was more gullible, too, when I started doing this show. I used to be a fan of that Kerry Cassidy, Project Camelot, and I believed a lot of the stuff that I used to hear on her show. I thought it was real. I was very naive. And I just assumed that there was checks and balances, that people were checking into this stuff. And then after I started meeting these people and meeting, you know, their guests and all this stuff like that, I found out how much of it is just made up and how it was just, you know, crazy people and dishonest people. You know, a lot of it is, you know. But I thought that branching into alternative media, I could share what I've known behind the scenes, and I would also get more business. I somehow thought that this would be more publicity for me. It hasn't worked that way out at all. All it's done is ruin my credibility in mainstream media. And when I do get, I still pitch myself. Not as much as I used to. But I still pitch myself for these appearances and stuff like that, and these reality TV shows. And as soon as, they had, well, what kind of topics do you cover? And I start talking about satanic cults and pedophilia. They don't want to touch any of that stuff. So what I'm telling you is I've given up a lot, to come on here and talk freely and honestly. I could have been playing the game a little bit more and been more successful. So when I report these things to you, I'm telling you, I say it to you for a reason. Okay? And a lot of times I'll tell you something that I know about, and someone will respond back to me with a link to a story. And say, oh no, Ed, look, here's what's really going on. It's, stuff that I'm personally involved in. The Tiger Woods stuff happened all the time. I'm personally involved in. No, Ed, look, here's this story. And I'm probably already aware of that link that you're sending me. But I'm also aware that when I've been working on these stories, there's plenty of stories that get published that are inaccurate. Or there's stories that get published that are inaccurate on purpose because they got their own press agents and they're trying to present their own version of events. So it's very, very frustrating. So what I'm trying to present to you here is that these news sources and stuff like that you see, you can't rely on them like you think you can. A lot of it's packaged stuff to sell you a story. A lot of this stuff about Trump, the whole thing about people saying how Trump was elected through memes, a lot of that is true because the general public's been dumbed down so badly that they just believe anything that they hear on these memes. I was listening to an alternative media radio station the other night where the guy talking, everything he was talking about, everything he was reporting was these crazy things that you see on these memes that half the times you just Google a couple of words, you could find out they're a hoax to begin with. There was a story, I don't even know if it hit the press, but it's floating around behind the scenes about Omarosa, who was one of the people on Celebrity Apprentice there. Well, first she was on the regular Apprentice. And then because she became a celebrity from Apprentice, she was on Celebrity Apprentice. And now she's working in the White House with Donald Trump. Now, under any other circumstances, that alone would, under Bush or Reagan, that alone, that some reality TV star got a job at the White House, that would be a big story in itself. But there was a big story coming out this week because there's a tape recording of her having a fight with a reporter. And first she's accusing the reporter of working for the Clintons, and they're going back and forth. And then she tells reporters, well, you should go talk to the Clintons because they'll take care of you. They'll pay you. And this is all recorded. Now, if there wasn't all this other chaos going on 24 hours a day, this would be a huge story. If this happened under Bush or happened under Reagan or happened under Clinton, this would be a huge story. But we're living in a situation where we have constant chaos every day. And people asking for a dictatorship. That's the solution. Like maybe, people who think that they're all puppets and stuff like that, maybe that's the trick that they put in this con man because they knew he would destroy everything and the place would fall apart and they would come in with a military government. That's the only other thing I can think of because this idea that he's going to make America great again and save us all from what, it's just not there. Hey, God almighty. Well, unfortunately, the flow that didn't go so well. Okay. As well as I would have hoped. Okay. Let me pull up some notes here. Because there were some other things I want to talk about this week. One was the whole Ted Gunderson thing. And everybody likes that. Okay. All right. Ted Gunderson. Okay. You know, I'm really disappointed that we didn't get a chance to do this this guy today, this guest, with this book, Killing God's Enemies. The story with this guy is, I don't know his backstory, because it says he's a convicted felon, and he was a former priest. But it's about this group called the Phineas Brotherhood, right? The Phineas Priesthood, who would go around. They were doing all kind of bombings and bank robberies and stuff like that, and violent crimes because they hate Jews and they hate blacks and they hate gays. I don't know who else they hate. They hate a lot of people. Jews, homosexuals, abortionists too. They want to kill. So, and they want America to be ruled by white men. And so we had this guy booked to come on. It's a trying day book. I can't believe he's sympathetic to this cause, but I think he was formerly in this militia. He grew up in it, and then he got convicted of some kind of felony. And then it talks about how the guy's using a fake name, and then they mentioned another guy that was in prison for bank robberies. I'm not sure what the connection with these if they're two people or one person or what. But it's a shame, because I think this is a topic that needs to be addressed on this show, especially about the Jews. Because there seems to be so much in alternative media and in people who are seemingly rational people in other areas of their life and interested in the same topics that I'm interested in. But then they have this Jew hate, this hatred of Jews, and then also too. And either I'm not sufficiently hating Jews, or sometimes they claim that I am a Jew. And then other times people say that I hate Jews. Okay? So I win nowhere with the Jews. I lose on every angle, except I think more people hate me because I don't hate the Jews as sufficiently that they think I should hate Jews. Not that I hate Jews. I don't hate Jews. But I'm just saying that people demand that I hate Jews. Or that they think I'm Jewish, which I'm not. The name Opperman is German Lutheran. So I don't know where I was born Catholic. Now I'm a Christian. So I don't know where they come up with that. So this is a topic that needs to be addressed on this show, this whole irrational hatred of Jews and all that craziness. I really wish we would have had a chance to get this guy on the show here today. Another one, too, that you hear all the time. See, I'm not into this whole thing of who runs the world, And I'm satisfied in just making it an economic issue, and that's the people, we need to turn have more equitable financial situation. I don't care if they're Jews. Okay, a lot of people say they're Jesuits, And a guy had this whole complaint about me because I never mentioned the Jesuits. I never mentioned, I would mention if they came up in conversation, I would mention Jesuits. But what, do the Jesuits really, run the world? I don't even know what the Jesuits are. But I'm going to tell you guys a little secret here. My father, went to a Jesuit college. Okay. So now it's out. Okay. Ed Opperman never mentions the Jesuits, and here's his father's a Jesuit. There's the proof. There it is. Because maybe he's a Jew and a Jesuit. That's always possible too. So my dad went to a Jesuit college. What was it? Powell Memorial in the Bronx, I think it was, in New York. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. And he was on the basketball team. So he graduated from there, and he used to talk about how the brothers would, beat the crap out of you. It was a tough school. But the idea that my father's part of some kind of any kind of a secret society that runs the world could not be further, possibly further than the truth. The guy worked for charities his whole life. He's an accountant. Has no kind of political power or personal power whatsoever. If anything, he's gone the other way, he never liked any kind of power or anything like that. My father's a great guy, but, and never any kind of a thing where my dad was part of some kind of secret society. He was right there with the Jesuits, okay? So you got this theory that the Jesuits run the world. I don't know. My experience, my personal experience is the opposite. And I'll tell you a little story, okay? Growing up on Staten Island, one of the things, there was a lot of organized crime people around. As a matter of fact, the people lived upstairs from us, had horses, race horses, they were in the meat business, all these kind of, a lot of your friends, their dads are these kind of, sanitation, private sanitation, all these different kinds of, you see them in their suits and stuff, and then you read about them in the paper, they're involved in this and they're involved in that, loan sharking, bookmaking. So, growing up, anytime you had a beef with another kid, this whole thing comes up. Oh, do you know who my uncle is? Oh, do you know who my father is? I can never say that. Okay, 'cause my dad was an accountant. So there was this guy. Oh, I'd love to say his name. There was this guy, and it was a small. When we were growing up, he was a small guy. But as we got older and older, he became a real tough guy. He was short and he was small, but really fit and he liked to fight. He was a real fighter. And he went on to his dad got killed by the mafia. Although there is no mafia. His father got killed by organized crime. Okay. And so he was always, people kept an eye out for him, because that's how they do that stuff. After they kill you, they keep an eye out for your kids, coming up. They become a father figure in the kid's life. So he had some kind of beef with these other guys, and he had a shootout at the train station, the Annandale train station on Staten Island. He had a semi-automatic Uzi. Had a shootout with these guys. No charges. The police dropped the charge. They said because of the nature of the dispute between the two parties, there was no charge. They dropped it out. He hired this. It was a big lawyer on Staten Island called Anthony Krecker, who was a big fixer guy there. Again, the organized crime connections. And this guy ran to Krecker. Krecker got him out of the case. And then you'd read about him all these other times. One time he was at the movie theater. He got shot. The guy got shot like 9 times. Okay? But when we were kids, coming up, me and this kid, we had a little dispute over some stuff. I believe it was the quality of merchandise he was questioning. Okay. And we got into this little dispute, and he started that whole thing with me about, who my uncle is, who my father was, and I says, who my father is? And, everybody got quiet, because everybody wants to know who's his father, right? I says, my father's an accountant. I says, you never have to worry about my father. You got to worry about me right here in front of you, me, right? His dad, the tough guy, the younger days. Now I got a hernia, I can't even walk up the stairs fast. But these are my younger days, and that's how I kind of made a name for myself coming up in Staten Island. That was a game-changing thing. And I'll tell you something else, too. His uncles did know me, okay? And then these guys knew me, too. So, but anyway, that's my story about the Jesuits, okay? Don't worry about the Jesuits. Don't worry about the Jews. Just worry about, let's make our fair shake here and try and get our fair cut without worrying who's in charge. And then you start getting all kind of crazy stuff. Oh, the Anunnaki and the Illuminati and stuff like that. Don't worry about all that stuff, man. Just worry about that we want to cut up the money fairly. Okay? We want to have a fair shake at the table. We want to have ownership over the national resources. These kind of things. Yeah, that's what you got to worry about. Hey, okay. We got a break coming up in about 5 minutes. Okay, when we come back, I'll tell you about Ted Gunderson. Let's see. I'll tell you about my plan. I have to create a charity that donates to the rich. Okay? How do you like that? A charity that donates to the rich. Okay? Let me look at the clock here. 49? Okay. Hey. Oh, yeah, let me look over here. William Ramsey booked a guest for me for next week. Something about child trafficking in the UK. That should be pretty good. And then, you know what I'll do, too? I'll tell you about this stuff going on here. That I'll finish up some of that stuff I had about Robert Downey Jr. that I was talking about last night. Last night's show was really popular. You know what Trump saying? Okay. Let me pull this up here. Give me a second. I'm just pulling this up, these notes here. Give me a second here. This computer runs so damn slow. Don't forget that Patreon. Go to Patreon there, look up American Freedom Radio, support good old Danny Romero, and keep the station on the air. Okay, here we go. We're back. Pull this up. Yeah, I think this is going to be a lost episode, guys. Okay, that's what I'm suspecting. Okay, here we go. All right. Oh, here's the break. We'll be right back after this with more of the Opera Report.
I like very much
radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
And I hope people support American Freedom Radio. And I hope people vote with their dollars and really understand the value of having American Freedom Radio. Because that's my family. If you love me at all, Jack Blood, support American Freedom Radio. Like, my family has literally disowned me in American Freedom Radio. Danny and Don and those guys, those are my actual family. So please support these guys because they have all the technology. They have all these great things that they're going to do. But obviously, they can't do it all by themselves. So not only would I like to see you support them, I'd like to see you retweet them and repost them and really get involved and get on the bandwagon, so to speak, on doing that do-it-yourself promotion, because they're a do-it-yourself radio network.
And now a word from our sponsors. Did you know that 30% of all people on online dating websites and personal ads are either married or in a monogamous relationship? 30%. If you suspect that your husband, your wife, your boyfriend, your girlfriend may be cheating online, go to emailrevealer.com. Our online infidelity investigation. You give us their email address, and we could trace it back to online personal ads, dating sites, and social networks. We can even expand the investigation and find them cheating on escort service sites or even porn sites if they're registered to porn sites and swinger sites. So check out emailrevealer.com if you suspect your spouse is cheating, and check out our online infidelity investigation. William Ramsey is a producer here at the Opperman Report, and he's just come out with a new book, Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. Now, he just sent me a copy of this book. Oh boy, it's about 2 inches thick, and there's a chapter on just about everybody in this book that you can imagine. The Beatles, and, Jack Parsons, everybody's in here. It's incredible. And I definitely recommend this book. There's a bunch of pictures in here, too, of all these people and different chapters and information. Anselm LaVey and people I've never heard of, too. There's a whole bunch in here. JFC Fuller. I don't know who he is. But it's great stuff by our producer here, William Ramsey. So check out Children of the Beast, Aleister Crowley's Shadow Over Humanity. You can find it on Amazon.com, or you could find it in the Opperman Report .com bookstore. We have an urgent bulletin. It seems that the group Strawman is still on the loose. It has been confirmed that Strawman are Canadian, okay, and that authorities are asking people to stay indoors, lock your doors and windows until this group can be dealt with. You could find more information about this group of Canadians, at strawmanmusic.com. You can have your ad played here. Okay, we're looking for sponsors. Okay, in fact, we desperately need sponsors right now to take this show to the next level. So you can have your ad played here, read live, like I'm doing now, so artfully. Or we can even work up a little jingle for you with some music and stuff like that and play it here. You have no idea how inexpensive it would be to have your ad played on the Opperman Report on 7 stations. Live Friday night, and another 7 stations live on Saturday night, plus replayed every day of the week on different stations, and then archived on YouTube, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and all different kinds of podcasts, Pod This and Podbean, all different kinds of places who archive the show for us. And on those archives, your ad would play indefinitely, forever. You also get a little banner on OppermanReport.com. You get a mention on the air. You get a little interview on the air, and all kinds of fun stuff if you sponsor Opperman Report. We have an opportunity. Okay, to welcome get this back show on a major to the AM Opperman station Report. in I'm the host, California. private We've investigator been Ed approved. Opperman. So if you want to Stop this sponsor here. us into that, it's a day for technical disasters, guys. Okay. Let me stop this here. Okay. And we are back on the air. Thank you so much. This show is brought to you by emailrevealer.com. Go to emailrevealer.com. Get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. And also, too, if you need to catch somebody cheating online, we can do all kind of stuff for you as well. Now, let's see. Ted Gunderson. I guess it was back when VHS tapes first started coming out, like in the late 80s. I was always interested in these kind of conspiracy theories and stuff like that, stories and information, like obscure information. Like, I first became into contact with that stuff from the Yippies, from Overthrow Magazine and Yipster Times, and then WBAI. I always liked to hear that exotic, unique, obscure news, stuff you didn't hear in mainstream news. And there was some stuff going around in the 80s when videotapes first became available that somehow I got on these lists where they'd mail you a videotape of the latest conspiracy because it was too out there, it was too crazy to even make it out to WBAI at 3 in the morning or to even make it into Yipster Times. And I remember one in particular, it was this videotape that they were sending around. And you'd get the videotape in the mail, okay, usually from a person I knew. I knew this woman from church who used to send them to me. And they'd send you that videotape. And then it was a list, and you had to send it to the next name on the list, okay? And there was one in particular where they had this theory that the road signs on the highway, if you looked at them in reverse, they had little stickers in the upper right-hand corner that were leading you to the escape route of where when the FEMA camps came or martial law came or something like that. That was the way. And they even had a theory too that they led you to these heliports at the top of buildings. If you followed these little stickers on the back of these things, you'd find them. Okay. So I was on that list with these. So when you see a lot of times now, you'll see these seminars, these videos on YouTube of these old seminars from the 70s and the 80s that have been digitized and put up on YouTube. A lot of it's that kind of stuff, you know? And a lot of people today, they'll watch these YouTube videos, you know, and they think, well, this was a big audience, you know, this guy was speaking in front of a big audience. And really it was like a little church basement, maybe 10 people in there. And these stories and these tapes and these seminars have become legend, right? Now, the way I came into contact with Ted Gunderson was this. Because he was in that little group too, with the videotapes. But how I personally got into contact with him was I had a friend in Staten Island who was an information broker. I was an information broker too. I was a private investigator. He was just an information broker, but I was an information broker and a PI. Meaning that, you know, you'd get information, like you'd have access to the computer system at Con Ed. So you'd know where people lived, you know, their utility bills and stuff like that. Or you'd have a connection with the phone company, a connection to DMV, and you'd buy and sell that information. So my friend Victor was considered to be one of the top guys with asset searches. That he could find bank accounts and he could find the investment accounts. And back then, this is before computers. There was no internet back in those days. He did all this over the phone. And then later on, a little bit by fax. And basically how you did the asset searches was, you know, you'd get the guy's social security number, and then you'd call up the bank, you'd pretend you were him. And then you'd tell him, you know, well, mail me the stuff, or, you know, read it to me, how much money is there in the bank right now. So he was supplying his information to this big company. I'm not going to name the big company because they got into some trouble later on. Who needs a headache, right? And I was supplying them with telephone company information to this big company that had a whole bunch of clients all over the country. So what happened was my friend Victor got in trouble. And we managed to get a list of clients that were using this big company. And on there was Ted Gunderson's phone number. He was one of the clients of this big company. So I called him up and I offered him my services and stuff like that. We're talking about this, we're talking about that. And somehow he got it in his head that I think I mentioned to him about the videos, you know? And he got this idea in his head that I somehow had the ability to duplicate videotapes, right? And that I could do this job for him, to duplicate videos, you know? And that I was going to be his guy. He was going to send me one videotape, and I was going to make copies of it, and then we were going to mail him. He was going to sell the tapes, you know, whatever, of his seminars, whatever these tapes were. I didn't even know what they were at the time. But he got this idea that I was in the videotape business duplicating videos. And I think I even thought in my head, I says, you know what, I can go out and buy that machine. I can do this. Ted Gunderson, who doesn't want to be involved with him? He's a big shot, right? Oh, God. Always liked him. Always thought he was legit. But I would say the first time I became disillusioned with Gunderson was back in those days, you know, it was more Rolodex and word of mouth And if you got a client, and they were previously a client of, especially someone famous like Ted Gunderson, and then they would come to you and they would have complaints about their former PI. And, I hired so-and-so and I hired so-and-so. And word kind of got around that these little old ladies would hire Gunderson, put him on retainer, and then he would kind of like charm them, over the phone and even in person, and there was always him going around living in different places on couches and stuff, and all that, stuff like that gets around, as much as people look at the PI profession as it's like a bunch of sleazebags, and in a lot of ways it is. There's a lot of sleazy guys out here in this business, but there is a professionalism, where people take this serious, where you're taking other people's evidence and other people's cases and their criminal cases and their lives, and you're entrusted with that, and people take that seriously. We really do, and word gets out. If there's a guy out there who's doing sloppy stuff, it gets out, and now well, so there was that. But then there was also these people on the internet who always seemed to be feuding with Ted back and forth. And you could never really get the story straight. He's feuding with them. They're feuding with him. They got a whole website about him, and he's responding to their accusations. And by coincidence, some of those people that had this big beef with Ted were clients of mine. Not even related to any of this kind of alt stuff, media stuff or any kind of conspiracy stuff. They were just clients of mine, just for being clients, for having their own personal problems in their life. And, then too, when I had the email revealer, one of the things was cyber stalking and tracing emails. And so we had an affiliate program. I don't really promote it now, but we had an affiliate program where you could put the link banner on your website, and you got a percentage of every sale that comes through. If someone clicks on that, then they order something. So some of these people fighting with Ted were affiliates of mine as well, on top of, So I had a lot of people who knew Ted. They were upset with Ted and all that kind of, but I still personally, I liked him. I respect him. Everything I heard about him, I thought was real, And it wasn't until I contacted, I was very much into Usenet. And I was a big follower of Alex Constantine. And all the stuff that was about Aquino and the stuff that was about McMartin, preschool and stuff like that. And I was always commenting in those forums. And one day I made contact with Jackie Maguli, who was one of the mothers of the McMartin preschool kids who dated Gunderson. He lived at her house. And we chatted online a little bit. And she told me to call her up. She gave me her phone number. She says, call me up. I want to talk to you. Because she thought I was somebody else. Okay? And we had a conversation. And she tells me that, I guess Gunderson came up. I don't know. Oh, I mentioned the tunnel reports that Ted Gunderson had done. And she says, he didn't do that. I paid for those tunnel reports, and he's selling them on his website. And she goes, he lived here with me. And I said, yeah, I heard about that, yeah. And she didn't like him at all. She was very upset with him. And one of the things she told me was that he would talk to Colonel Aquino on his cell phone every day. And I says, well, why would he be doing that? And she says, to make himself feel important. And that's interesting. And I took that at face value, and I accepted that. And it wasn't until years later I started hearing Stu Webb say all this stuff like that about how he was a shill and a double agent, and he was involved in Satanism, and he was married to, I think, Anton LaVey's first wife or something, kind of craziness like that, that there was something to that. Then it popped right back in my head. Hey, I remember this, And this was said to me before any of these accusations were public. Now, a lot of people might recall that I was involved in the Art Bell lawsuit and the Art Bell feud with David Oates and Robert Stevens. And I tried to help negotiate a settlement between. Bell was suing David Oates for. David Oates was the reverse speech guy, and he was suing him for $60 million. And I knew somebody who knew Oates very well, and we were debating online, me and Oates and Stevens, and it was called a feud. And ultimately, I gave my phone number to Oates to help negotiate a settlement in this lawsuit. And I was successful. He confessed some things to me that he was planning on declaring bankruptcy after losing. He was just going to not respond to the suit, then declare bankruptcy. And you can't do that. That's illegal to plan to create a debt and then go bankrupt. So once I had that down in an affidavit, they had to settle. I was actually a witness in the case. As a matter of fact, too, Stevens was making threats against me that he was going to come and kill me. And Art Bell used those threats against me to get a restraining order for himself. Okay. Saying, oh, look how he's threatening my friends and my fans. I need a restraining order from this crazy man because he's threatening this other guy. And believe it or not, he got one. I didn't get one. I had no help in the situation. I was on my own. I wasn't working as a PI either at the time. I was totally doing all that stuff with the beeper company. At that time, I don't think I was doing any PI work at all. And I've gone on and off, but I've always usually done a little bit. But I think at that period, I was doing nothing. So coming off my settlement of the Art Bell, David Oates lawsuit, Bell had a lawsuit with Gunderson at the same time. So I says, hey, I'm Mr. Settlement. I'm Mr. Negotiator. Let me call up Gunderson and settle this. So I call him up, explain to him who I am. Hey, remember me? Let's do this. And right away, he's going, yeah, how come you never made those tapes for me? Remember we had that, we're going to do those tapes together, make the copy of those tapes. I said, yeah, well, not really, man. Never really said I was going to do that. It's not my business. So I talked to him about settling the Art Bell thing, and I said, hey, you know what, if you met Bell, if you talked to him, I think you two would get along. Great, man. I think, we need to put you on a show, I'm sure. But he says to me, no, I'm not interested in talking about this or even negotiating this because my insurance company, my errors and omissions insurance company is handling this for me. They have an attorney and an insurance company handling it. So being a private investigator myself, and over the years and back and forth, I knew that every PI has errors and omissions insurance, meaning that if you make a mistake in your report and you get sued, or you leave something out of your report that causes harm to your client, and you get sued, your insurance company handles it for you. I've never had to go to my insurance company, ever. So I took that at face value, too. And I said, oh, okay. But I'll tell you this, though. And then after, too, his insurance company settled with Bell. And I understand that after that, he was all upset about that. He felt that they should not have settled, and he should have either fought the suit or negotiated. Because he didn't think he did anything wrong. I found out later on, though, that now that I'm in radio, that my errors and omissions insurance for PI work doesn't cover anything I do over the radio. See, Gunderson was being sued because he said something over the radio, not as active work as a private investigator. So his errors and omissions insurance could not have settled and paid for that lawsuit. It had to be some other insurance policy that he had that paid for that. Which makes me wonder. Because right around the time of his death, I had a client in California, and it was a crazy case, too. Man, she had a whole story, but she was a little flaky, too. But we're talking, and she says, oh, and I even talked to Ted Gunderson about this. And I said, well, why didn't you talk to him? She says, well, I was down at the FBI office, headquarters there in Los Angeles, and I ran into him. And I said, oh, what'd you run into him? She says, he was working there. And I said, when was this? She says, it was just recently, like a couple of weeks before she had told me this. So he was working maybe on some kind of consulting or contract basis or whatever. I don't know what. But I got an eyewitness that I believe said he was there working at the FBI headquarters in Los Angeles. Right before his death. You know? Now, taking all this in its entirety. By the way, there was one more incident with me and Ted. Was what is that case? Ted Binion murder here in Vegas. Sandy Murphy had this benefactor who was had a mining company, and he wanted to bring Ted Gunderson in to work on her case, and her lawyers did hire Ted to come and work on his case. And it was actually a hearing where he was disqualified from working on the case because he wasn't licensed in Nevada. And he was kicked off the case. And I found out later on that it was Stu Webb who made the complaint and got him thrown off that case. But I was involved in that case because after the conviction, what happened was, I had been following the case on Court TV, on the Court TV website. And throughout there was a chat room message board on there. It was very popular. A lot of activity. And someone was on there every day commenting about the case. You know, they were really into it. And then when the verdict came in, that person stopped commenting, and another person started commenting who said that they were a juror on the case. And what do you call it? That they were a juror, and they had and it was the same writing style, the same little typos and stuff like that. And you can get a voice when you're reading somebody's messages all the time, and you see it. So I did a little trick, okay, where I emailed both of the people. The old person and the new person, and I sent them a phone number, and they opened up the emails at the exact same time, and then they called up the phone number, and it was from the juror's house. Okay, so I contacted the defense, and I let them know that there was someone on the jury who was typing on the internet. But ultimately the judge in the case wouldn't hear that motion. He didn't. He ruled against this. That there was a juror was typing on the internet, even though it was pretty cut and dried. Man, like today, I think it would have been accepted, but back then, like digital forensics, that type of digital forensics was so email tracing and stuff like that was so new. It was like year 2000. Yeah, that kind of thing was so new. That and the judge was such an old-fashioned guy that he didn't accept our little motion. He ruled against us. So that was another little association I had with Gunderson. But when you look at the guys, and then since then I've tried to interview a lot of people who knew him, who worked with him. With the McDonald case, Jeff McDonald, for a while I was very friendly with McDonald's wife, his new wife, the one that married him in prison. And I tried to lay out these, scenarios to him because I have a little suspicion about the McDonald case. By the way, too, it's very interesting, too, that whenever you bring up the McDonald case, right away, the first thing that comes up is Ted Gunderson. When I was part of that Moratoria group, and I would bring up the McDonald case, because I had questions, because there are claims that some of those people involved in that little alleged hippie cult there, you know, that came in chanting "Acid is groovy" and stuff like that, were that there was a Protestant church connection to that. Okay, so I asked about it in the Maury group, and everybody jumped down my throat about, Ted Gunderson was wrong about that case. I said, okay, fine. You know, Maury investigated that case, and what's his name was on amphetamines, and he had a breakdown. You know, you got to take a lot of amphetamines. You know, there's people that are up. You know, we know people now on meth. They're up 7 days, and they're not stabbing their whole family. But Maury Terry was convinced that Jeff McDonald was addicted to amphetamines because he had some amphetamines in his medicine cabinet. And that he killed his whole family. And that Ted Gunderson was completely wrong about that whole case. Okay. But one thing we know is that Gunderson became in total control. By the way, he quit the FBI. You know, that was his first case after the FBI. He went straight to that. And he got a hold of the witness, the girl in the floppy hat, who said she was part of this witches cult, this devil cult, that went in there with candles and stuff like that. And there was some evidence of all that there were candles. This cult definitely did exist. There were other witnesses that this cult did. But he took control over this witness, and he videotaped her, did a videotape interview of her. And he controlled that witness. But what I find interesting is that you know who was stationed on that base where Jeff McDonald's family was killed during this period of time when they were smuggling in all those drugs from Vietnam? Colonel Aquino, who later became Ted Gunderson's daily phone conversationalist at the same time. He was there. There was a devil cult there that killed his family. Well, supposedly, you know, a lot of people are very convinced that it was McDonald who did it, because of the blood trail and stuff like that. And that could be. So I tried to share this, you know, my theory with McDonald and his wife. And they still have, to this day, have a lot of faith in Gunderson. That, oh, no, he was this big FBI agent. And they were very happy with his work that he did for them. Even though he controlled the witness, you know, who had this information. They weren't even aware that Aquino was there at the same time when I told them. How's that? You know? How's that? You know? You get this big national, internationally famous case, several movies done about it. You know, the people involved don't even know. They were just oblivious to this information. You got to remember, as far as Gunderson goes, that the LA office of the FBI, where Gunderson was the special agent in charge, that's where COINTELPRO started. And he never made any mincemeats about this. He talked to it. This is where they killed Black Panthers. This is where they set up Black Panthers for crimes they didn't commit. This is where they imprisoned Black Panthers for years and other activists and this is where it all started. This is where it all went down. And who was the agent in charge of all that? Ted Gunderson. Right? And now we're going to believe, well, okay, fine, he left all that. Somehow stayed friends with Aquino, have this daily conversation with him, and now became a truther who's telling the truth about everything, and we should just trust him and believe him 100%, even though he had a reputation for taking from these old ladies. You turn down those cases, man. You know, I get those kind of clients call me up and they want me to take their case because they hear voices in their attic, you know? And they want you to come down and investigate. There's a lot of people out there like that. They're just sad, lonely people, and they want to talk to a PI because it's glamorous in their head, because they've been watching Rockford Files. And some people take those cases, and some people turn them down. And Ted was one of those guys that took those cases. And he had that reputation. And he was the guy in charge of COINTELPRO. So now we're going to believe that, okay, fine, he turned his back on all of that and became a truther. And what did he really do? You know, like, worked on a lot of cases, but did anybody ever go to jail for any of the things he worked on? You know, has any of that stuff? There's a lot of talk, really. So, you know, I had a guy to call me up. He was he works for the military, and just recently I was supposed to tape with him, and he didn't show up. He flaked on the tape, but he knew the camp, a family friend at the camp, and he was a family friend at Gunderson, and he said that he had information that even, you know, all that stuff was just a bunch of talk, and that they had a plan just to sell books and come up with all that. So you could probably count on one hand people who actually knew Gunderson that then still have faith in him. You know, almost entirely it's people who never met him, never talked to him, and never dealt with him, and never dealt with people who dealt with him, who have this mythology of the great Ted Gunderson. And it's usually from watching those YouTube videos, you know, of those presentations and those seminars, many of which are in church basements in front of 5 people that were videotaped and then passed around on those tapes, you know. So can I definitively say that, yeah, he's an agent? Well, I don't know. I kind of can I? You know, I had a client that saw him there at FBI, you know. Somehow he had some kind of insurance who paid for that lawsuit. Insurance that covered him on, you know, doing some kind of work, you know. I'm thinking it was his FBI insurance. So, who knows? So that's the Ted Gunderson stuff. With a few things omitted just to protect the innocent. Hey, let's see. Mind control. All right. Well, let's see here. You know who died? There's this really famous restaurant in New York City, called Rayo's. You know, if you're from New York, it's a Italian restaurant that they got like their own menu. You know, they tell you what they're gonna cook, something different every night. There's like no menu; they just tell you what they made. Except they got these meatballs that they always have, and they got some kind of deal. It's impossible to get a table now. Forget it, it's totally impossible. But rich history back in New York, and his wife or his daughter or whatever has a Rayo's out here. Pellegrino has a. I was going to do some more research on this before I was going to talk about this, but it's the kind of place that deserves a tribute. It's a what do you call it? A landmark in New York. It really is. And so many funny stories of, you know, when you've got to call around to your friends to get a table there and stuff like that. You need to know somebody, because they actually sell tables too. There's some people that own tables there. They you know, some kind of deal they made where they always have a table, you know, because it's like a timeshare or a condo and stuff. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's a fun. And I got an imitation one here in Vegas that I've never bothered with, because all the imitation restaurants out here, they're never worth touching. But it's kind of a funny story, and I don't even know if I want to tell it, because it's kind of like a real inside stuff. Well, one of the guys who has a table at Rayo's is Bo Dietl. And back in the 80s, when Bush was president, oh, no, wait, it might have been the first Bush. I forget. I don't know if I want to tell the story. I better not. I'm not going to tell. I'm going to pass on that whole thing. But God bless Rayos. He just passed on last week, when I was going to talk about this. And we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Oh, boy. Well, let's see. What else? I got to kill about a half hour. I was talking about creating a charity that donates to the rich. Right? Now, does that make any sense? What if I told you that the best way to help the poor was not to donate to the poor, but would be to donate to the rich? We should have a charity that not just donates to the rich, but also does personal services to the rich. See, because if I told you that, you'd think I was crazy, right? You'd say, well, Ed, why do the rich need charity? Okay, why wouldn't we give charity to poor people that are hungry and starving? Why wouldn't we give our charity to them? But instead we give our charity. Why would we instead give our charity to the rich? Well, I'll tell you why. It's just it's called trickle down economics. Okay, and what happens is the more charity we give to the rich, the more free time they'll have to create jobs for the poor. And then the poor will have more jobs and they'll have a better lifestyle. Now, does that make any sense to anybody? Is there anybody out there that would swallow that, okay, and say, you know what, Ed, that's a good idea. I should go volunteer my time, not at a soup kitchen. I should go volunteer my time at a rich person's house waxing their cars, or maybe massaging them, giving them a free massage, or helping them out of the shower and toweling them dry, okay? Or maybe when they're taking a poop on the toilet, I can wipe their butt for them. That way, they'll have more time to create more jobs, and that'll help to stir up the economy and new business and new jobs to help the poor. Doesn't that make sense? Doesn't that make sense? Because that's what we're doing. When you have someone like Mr. Trump, President Mr. Trump, who says he's going to decrease the tax on the rich and the corporate tax from 35% to 15%, and this is going to create more jobs and the more investment and more opportunity, and that's going to help the poor. It's not going to help the rich by reducing their taxes. It's going to help the poor by reducing the taxes of the rich. And people will see that and they'll say, Ed, that makes sense, because those are the job creators. Well, I say to those people, then why do you give charity? I said, well, do you donate money to charity? Of course I do. Well, do you donate to the rich or to the poor? Well, to the poor, of course. Okay. See, it's so simple when you really think about it. Because if you're telling me that by cutting the tax of the rich, okay, it's going to somehow trickle down to the poor, then by expanding on that theory, by donating charity to the rich and donating your time, volunteering your time, serving the rich so that they'll have more free time to create those jobs, okay, for the poor. Doesn't that make sense? Isn't that the same exact thing? Explain to me how it's not, because it is the same exact thing. Exact same thing. Okay. Oh, boy. Let's see here. No, Ed. Hey, any questions in the chat room? You got any questions for me here? Okay, turn up the windows. Oh, yeah, okay. I'll talk about that. Yeah, okay. Yes, I have seen. They're asking me, have I ever seen the Bo Dietl interview on Fox News where he interviewed that guy Gannon, that a lot of people think is Johnny Gosh, right? Or Gosh, I forget how to pronounce it. Yes, I have seen it. I have never talked to Bo Dietl about that. But that whole thing is very interesting, okay? Because I know Bo I spent a lot of time with this guy, and I know all his different personalities, and I know when he puts on his fake personalities. I know when he's drunk. I see him on TV. I know when he got drinks. When I see him on TV, I know when he's been drinking, okay? And I know when he does his little, he starts doing his, mixing up his words, trying to come off sounding dumb. That's all an act. This guy's a brilliant guy, man, okay? He's a brilliant guy. So I know all his different voices and when he plays dumb and all this stuff. And his thing with Johnny Gosh, was a tough guy act. It was not the real tough guy Bo Dietl. It's a tough guy act. Okay, so whatever was going on there was some kind of act. So I have seen it. I talked to what's his name? Jim Rothstein about it. And Rothstein said he was there that day, by the way. And the whole thing was very, very bizarre, his interview with that guy. I haven't seen it again lately, but I can tell you this, that when it was kind of threatening and intimidating the guy, but I think that was an act. Okay. People are asking, how is Vic? Yeah, I know, yeah. It was people asking, how's Vic? Vic's my daughter. Vic's doing really good. She's 16 years old now, doing great with debate. She's really into this debate stuff, this forensic, National Junior Forensic League, where they do this debate stuff. She's running for debate captain, I think, or debate president of the debate club. Her boyfriend of over a year is this kid named Alex. Great kid. I really like him a lot. And he's like the debate. He's running against her on the debate and stuff like that. And he's a really good kid. And I like him a lot. And it's a very innocent relationship. And but she's doing good otherwise. And she's doing this vegan stuff, which a lot of people are telling me that might be the problem with my memory and stuff. I'm not getting enough fats. Fish fats and animal fats, which is probably true. Because I definitely have been in trouble with the memory. What is going on with that show in the UK? Well, it looks like I'm out of that, man. That happens a lot. You do these... all these little production companies all over the country. Long story short, I auditioned for a TV series in Manchester, England, about those kids, those college kids that are getting pushed into the river over there and getting killed. And I can't tell you who got me into the thing, but it was a former guest. They wanted her to do the TV series, and they needed a PI to go there and interview people and stuff like that. And I was going to be the PI, New York PI. I was going to go out there and so I did a Skype audition, which they loved, and I was putting on my New York accent, Hey, and I had these, and I says, I now sound angry, And so I was like auditioning. So I go, listen, I didn't come all the way across the pond for tea and crumpets. I want answers. Okay. And I did a whole bunch of stuff like that, over and over, hoking it up and hamming it up for him. And the guy loved it, but they always, when you do those auditions, the guy who auditions, they always act like they love it. Like it's the greatest thing they ever heard. They're all such phonies, But also, too, man, these are people, they were pitching into like the Oprah Winfrey, production company and stuff. By now, all these people know who I am. It's a small world. They all have those Google alerts now. They all keep track of this stuff. They all know what's going on. I've made a splash. Okay. Now there's a whole big discussion going on in the chat room about what kind of fats I need to be eating. In order to recover my memory. I don't know, man. But my memory is definitely not what it once was. That's for sure. Any more questions from the chat room? Let's see what I got over here. Well, there's some more talk about Trump appointing Petraeus to that position that Flynn just had to resign from. National Security Council, I think it is, right? Or National Security Director, I guess, right? And now they're saying, bring Petraeus back, which is really interesting, which would totally be a return back to Clinton's foreign policy type stuff. Upcoming guests. Any West Memphis 3 news? No, I got no West Memphis 3 news whatsoever. In fact, I was just thinking about that the other day. What's going on? There's really nothing left to talk about with the West Memphis 3. Except I do want to do a couple of shows about that. One would be to have an expert come on and talk about Exhibit 500. I've always wanted to do that. I've had trouble coming up with a reliable expert. You know, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't have a lot of faith in forensic psychologists and psychiatrists. You know, especially if they're dealing with my divorce and my custody stuff. They just seem to be a bunch of hacks. I don't think I've ever met one that's impressed me. So nothing with West Memphis 3 going on with me. The other thing, too, is there's this character on the West Memphis 3 Friends page, where there's a page on Facebook where if you're actually friends with the 3 killers, then you get to be in this special group and on a special page and talk about your friendship with them. You know, even though none of the 3 killers ever show up on the freaking page. And what do you call nothing on there. They never come on the page. I'm on the page. I'm certainly not a friend with these wackos, but I'm on the page. But Damien and Jesse and the other jerk, never there. Okay, they're saying have Pat Brown back to talk about Eitan Pates. You know what? I like Pat Brown, and I like her profiling work. I liked her personality. Me and Pat Brown got into a big fight, okay? And you know what? If she wants to come on here and talk about it, she's welcome. If anybody wants to send her this tape, okay? Because she wrote this thing on Facebook where she says, well, this is what happened when I got pulled over the other night. I got pulled over in my car. The police pulled me over because I had a taillight or I made an illegal turn. And she starts talking about how, well, I sat there motionless with my hands on the wheel and I didn't move until they came. And, you know, and all this stuff, you know, basically saying that that we have to act like prisoners or terrified out of our life, afraid to move around the police. And that's how we should act. That we should act like total obedient slaves and bootlickers when we're pulled over by the cops. And that's how you don't get killed by the police. And that's the advice that she was giving people. And I said, this is what you should do when you're pulled over by the police. And, you know, and I went back and forth. I says, explain to me what interaction with any other profession or any kind of person on the face of the earth where you have to act like that. You know, and it shouldn't be expected that we get these pumped up steroid criminals with pirates with badges that we have to act like slaves and bow to them just because they pull us over because there's something wrong with our car. And we have to dismiss that from our mindset entirely. Ed, why do you fight with all the good guests? Because they're the ones that I like to fight with. Hey, listen, I don't know. I don't know why I fight with anybody. Let me tell you something. I don't know why I fight with anybody. Okay, I really don't. Okay, I tell you, man, I don't ask anything from anybody. I really don't, man. You know, it seems that people think I'll give you all the reasons why I fight with people. Okay. I don't ask anybody for anything. I really don't. I mean, I ask you for money to support the show, but that's something we're all doing together. But I don't make demands on people. Show up at this time, do this, do that. Okay. But or expect people to work for me for free. But people seem to think that they can just make demands of me, of my time, of my sanity, and expect me to work for them for free, and then get upset when I'm not working enough for them for free. Are you kidding me? I was telling a story a couple of weeks back. You know, on a Saturday morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm getting phone calls and emails from someone. Ed, you got to call us back because we got this big thing we want you to work on for us. I said, does it have to be right now? I'm eating breakfast. Ed, you got to call us right now. And I happen to be eating breakfast with a neighbor of mine. Okay, I was on my laptop over at her house over there. She's making breakfast for me. And I got to leave there and come back here and get on Skype and call these people up. And they got some big thing they're working on. Big project. Good for them. Okay? Not only did I work on their freaking pod for free, okay, I'm calling in favors that I could use for myself from contacts I have at the National Enquirer, from contacts I have, at this kind of stuff. Okay? And I got a message. Did you even bother that job we told you to do for us? Did you even bother working on that for us? Yes, I did work on it for you. And then, get this, then they go to somebody else. And they said, we got an exclusive story for this other host here, giving him an exclusive. I say, well, why don't you ask him to call up Radar Online for you? That's why I fight with all the guests. Okay? And I have gone off Facebook. I'm not on Facebook anymore. I don't bother with it. Forget it. I've had it. It's driving me nuts. I go on into this. There's 50 messages. I can't deal with it. All of them complaining or completely insane. Okay, the people who listen to the show are crazy. I can't blame them, though. So that's why I fight with all the good guests. No, really. I don't like to fight with him. I really don't. And I think it's because I do have kind of a likable personality and people here, and people do like to talk to me. And I do like to help people. I like to help people. I really do, man. But it's people take advantage of that, man. They really do. And it really infuriates me, too, that when you got a paying client who's paying me to work for him, and I'm not servicing my paying client because I got someone who wants me to work for him for free. Yeah. And now someone in the chat room is saying, well, Ed, you need a secretary or a front man so you don't have to deal with idiots. But the problem with that is, and I've been down that road too, but then you got, especially with clients, then you have the problem of them saying, well, when I dealt with so-and-so, they told me that this was going to happen and that was going to happen, and so I really like to, and by the way, too, I got a lot of stuff going on over here, okay? I got a lot of stuff going on here behind the scenes that I don't talk about on the air. I got people working for me now, doing a lot of the scut work, the back office type stuff. So, but still, I deal with the clients myself because then they can't say, well, listen, this was promised to me or that was promised to me. So, no. I talk to you. I'm the only one talking to you, So I know. I've never found a happy medium, I've had a lot of employees, I've had companies with a lot of employees. And when I did, it was so frustrating trying to get them to do what I wanted them to do. And that I just said, you know what, the next business I get involved in is just going to be me doing all the work and with my own two hands. And I'm going to, so I don't have to make other people do what I want. And now that I'm doing that, it's worse. So I don't like that either. I'm really getting to the point in my life where I think I just want to go mop floors or just wash dishes someplace. And just live out the rest of my life just doing that. Because I'm going to have to work till I drop, till I die. There's no, everything's gone. I lost everything. So, and either it's going to be continuing this crap, which, I don't know. On the one hand, I really enjoy meeting these people and talking to these people and making friends with these people up there and the stuff I can get done. But on the other hand, I don't know, man. It just seems to be that we're just facing such an overwhelming obstacles, overwhelming opposition that I'm not even sure that what I'm doing is 100% not being manipulated and not being manipulated, that I'm not being compromised and being used because I don't, I bring the guests on, and I try and get them on the record, and a lot of times you can see right through But sometimes I see right through them, and other people aren't seeing right through them. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I can't. And then people say, well, you're insulting the guest. Well, you got to listen to my questions. If I ask someone a question, and I notice right away if I'm asking somebody a question, they're not answering my question. And usually can tell right in the beginning, that they're off on their own. They got their little prepared story. So, how much can you point that out to people? Before you get to a point where no one wants to come on your show and be interviewed because, So you can kind of tell the one. I'm a card. Okay, you can kind of tell the ones that have an agenda. And the ones that really want to get some truth out and get some stuff forward. But sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes it's a little tricky, too. So, but what I'm noticing more and more is that, especially in the last 3 years, that the infiltration of mainstream media is now being done here in alternative media, okay? Much more than ever before, and I'm talking at every level. Okay, hosts, guests, and station owners, and the whole thing. It's all there's a lot of stuff out there going on, and a lot of sabotage, man. You wouldn't believe, the amount of sabotage that's gone on. People trying to. That's gone on with this show from the day I first started doing this show. It just tells me that I'm on the right track, because this is not accidental sabotage. And as much as I tried to convince myself that it was just egos and jealousy and just personal stuff, nah, it's more than that. Show's over. Hey, Danny, thank you so much, man. God bless you. Well, I got about another 5 minutes to kill. Hey. So I really apologize for not having more notes prepared than I should have. Hey, and the guest, I should have contacted that guest and double-checked that phone number, but I thought it was all done. And honestly, I'm a little exhausted, okay, from doing this show and all this crap. Member section, I got a bunch of stuff ready to go up into the member section. I just got to get it over to Sean. And so it would be a big help if you could support that. Because, this month's super, super tight. You have no idea. Like, I'm just going to barely make it eke through this month, and then I got to worry about next month. Hey. If I remember, I might forget next month comes, right? I might not remember what month it is. Then what would I do? So, member section, I'm working on a deal, $65. You get the rest of this month, and then a month for free. No, yeah, you get the 13 and a half months. Or 13 months and 12 days. For $65. The low price is $65. You get that. And that's a big help. What you do is you contact me directly at oppermanreport@gmail.com. And send your PayPal invoice. And you send it back. Hey, you want to know what? I can end the show early, because this is definitely a lost episode. Okay, although I think the Gunnison stuff, I might have gave you some new information out there that you probably never heard before. I'd love to tell you the names of all the companies involved. That would be that might blow some minds if I acted and gave Victor's name and stuff like that. And people knew who he was and stuff. I think that's a lot of inside baseball too for like PIs and stuff. All right, guys. Again, I apologize. My guest didn't show up. Maybe he's off robbing a bank or something, right? Whatever he did to wind up in prison. Maybe violated parole. Maybe that's it. All right, guys. I'll see you next week. Coming up after this, we'll be right after this, is William Ramsey's doing a show about Huxley, Aldous Huxley. And he's a big expert on Huxley, so that's always good stuff. And then we have Doug Campbell with the Dallas Action. Right after this. Good night.